we'll do one more vid on Timur since he is such a essential big character in history that is not known of, which is amazing because he affected so much of Eurasia. I had mentioned, of course, his final plans was to go and try to conquer the Mings. He died before that happened.
It was in winter. It was an attempt.
It was in winter, right?
In the winter,
right.
going. His plan was to cross the. I can't pronounce it. It's the western desert of China, the Tuac Mechlin or
I know. I used to remember that.
Basin. Apparently, this is where all the conservative people are complaining about the
Uyghurs,
the Chinese wiping these people out right
the Uyghurs.
now. Okay, right. So going through that territory, he stops. On the border
I think it begins with a U. I think.
Yes, UIG.
Some kind of basin or something, but regardless, like that. Well, obviously, he was going after the Mings, I believe.
It was a desert. It was a desert basin.
Yeah.
That he was about to enter. He wanted to invade China. He felt it was urgent. He knew that all these bandit lords that were his generals, to keep them together, he had to point them at somebody.
Yeah.
So part of the reason why he spent most of every year conquering was it kept all the bandit scumbags from his country out of his country.
Right.
And he had a lot of respect for the domestic producers of his land. His men were not allowed to molest carpenters, herdsmen, farmers, anything like that. He put basically the mother dowager of his realm in charge of building up Samarkand in his absence. He did get heavily involved in the architecture, which sounds a lot like, a modern American construction magnate in a pinstripe suit, pissing off a bunch of union guys.
In Samarkand, right? You have those palaces. You have those beautiful, Islamic, the tiles and the inscriptions, because you're not allowed to show representations of things.
There's a legend about
it. Right? Well, I'm gonna get into that. The obviously, like you said, he died before they could take Ming Dynasty China or at least attack it. Of course, the Mings got done in 2 centuries later by the Manchus, another Siberian horse nomadic people who have been mentioned before. Their homeland Manchuria became a huge focal point of all kinds of war and conquest in the 20th century. But Manchukuo, right? The thing or two, the famous thing with the court of Tamerlane was that he had, I think, Italians. He had the Spanish guy, and he also had Italians, of course, who were the Europeans that had these trading routes all the way far east.
He let these greasy Italians in there with the Chinese emissaries?
Please, Cole.
I'm sorry.
They weren't from the south. No, that's where my ancestry's from. But regardless, no, Marco Polo's from Venice. I'm not gonna lie. All right, Genoa, Venice, these places were, they were military powers. Okay. These city-states were military powers in their own right, fighting other countries as city-states. But the point I'm making is that he had put these Europeans in a higher, in the sitting of his court. He had placed them in a more esteemed position than the Ming emissaries. Of course, the Chinese were fuming about this. There's not much they could do, though, because they didn't want to be tortured to death by this guy. But it was interesting that he had done that as an insult. I wonder what the Europeans there thought of the whole situation. But of course, also the other thing was you had mentioned the legend that I had mentioned that I read somewhere that, of course, Samarkand is in what they call Uzbekistan now, and it was part of the Soviet Socialist Republics. Essentially, they had eventually found the tomb of, because I believe that all the horsemen, the Khans, Temujin, their tombs were never it wasn't like the Mughal where they made the Taj Mahal, right?
That was one of his descendants.
One of his descendants.
Akbar, who was Right.
most of these steppe nomad people, Muslim or otherwise, they would hide their tombs, wouldn't they?
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Nobody's ever found the great man's tomb, Genghis Khan.
Right, right. If you open that tomb, then I think the world's going to end. Which, you know what? Open the tomb. But that aside, I know that in the Soviet Union, the legend is that they actually found Tamerlane's tomb. And it said on the tomb, right, just like the pharaohs of Egypt, right, it said on the tomb, do not mess with this tomb or something horrible is going to happen. Of course, these Soviet people, we believe in this house, we believe in science, right? They opened the tomb, and then 2 days later, my mother's people started to kick the shit out of them in Barbarossa.
Operation Redbeard?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, that's right. So,
I had a Redbeard once.
I wish it had, yeah. Now, of course, I wish that the curse had gone all the way and they would have won that. But regardless, that was, I mean, like I said, is it true or not? I don't care if something is true. Does it sound cool and does it make sense? And to me, that legend of messing with his tomb and having the Germans invade that and kick your ass for a while, that sounds cool to me. So these are just like miscellaneous things about Tamerlane. Do you have any closing thoughts on Tamerlane?
Yes. Okay, so Samarkand held such fascination for the English and for the Russians for two different reasons. There was a real sense in Eastern Europe the English actually missed the ball helping protect Vienna.
Oh, yeah.
And helping protect Malta. From,
they didn't even
from the Ottoman Turks.
They didn't even protect Ireland.
People. Yeah. One thing you can say for Timur, I don't think he ever permitted an Irishman in his court.
No,
so might have let some.
No drinking allowed.
Might have let some Italians in.
Oh, those Italians.
No Irishmen. Look, there's a great book titled "The Great Game."
Oh yeah,
and it's about this contest that went on for hundreds of years between Russia and Great Britain. And I'm actually writing a novel about a 200-year extension of this. Called it's titled A Gaslight Night, spelled with a K.
Oh,
a night of the gaslight. Okay, about somebody working for the British Empire continuing to fight the Great Russian Bear. But when you had English explorers coming up through Afghanistan from India, people like Sir Richard Francis Burton, Khiva was a place under Russian influence, but it was under a very backward Turkic, Mongol, Tartar, Central Asian tyranny. There were a couple of British explorers that, they were just like nosy dudes, like H.P. Lovecraft with like the leather man purse,
Oh, come on.
Dusting off mummies and stuff like that. I mean, these were not like guys that were trying to overthrow your government. They were just really trying to get back in touch with history, find the tomb.
Super scholastic, nerdy. Yeah.
Some of these guys were tortured and killed, possibly with remuneration for these services being provided from Moscow and Petersburg.
Hey, no offense. Last I checked, Russia was next to this region. Your British ass is nowhere near that. What the hell are you doing there?
Yeah, it was.
Just saying, but whatever.
You don't want to let the bear start swimming around.
Right.
Bears got big paws; they can swim.
Right.
So there was a lot of great fiction in the early 1900s. 7, 8, or 9 of these stories written by Robert E. Howard. There's a book titled El Borak and Other Desert Adventures. Most of these desert adventures are actually located in Afghanistan and Central Asia, and they regard the danger of some Russian agents stirring up the Turco-Mongol hordes to come sweeping down into India and just like wiping out all the Christians down there.
Sounds great.
Okay.
Oh.
All right. So Robert E. Howard wrote a lot of those stories, and they're really cool. The daughter of Erlich Khan was one of the best ones.
Oh, yeah, Afghanistan.
Okay.
What I call the home of the heroes.
Now, what the thing that just sticks in my mind when I was out in the pump room up in the Cascades listening to Tamerlane conquer the earth over and over again while I was doing my therapy exercises because, I wasn't in good enough shape to get out there and do any real work or split any wood or anything, is at the end, there's a bunch of notes, okay, that Harold Lamb provides at the end of his biographical novel. And in one of these, he, and it's not all the way at the end, but it's giving you an idea of how Timur saw himself. And it's in his last correspondence that goes back with this Diego fella, this knight, that goes back to the King of Castile, who Timur is addressing as his son, just like the King of England and the King of France and the King of Spain used to address Indian chiefs in the Great Lakes region. My son.
My son.
And I would say my father, because
My father.
this guy's got canoes floating all around the world, so he's my daddy and I'm his son. And they didn't see any diminishment in that. It was okay, mess with me, and my grandfather's going, and my father's going to send canoes across the ocean.
Right.
So the question was to, the point was to Timur's religious identity. And he addresses this letter to the King of Castile, signed, although he didn't sign it, he has some lowly scribe. He did teach himself how to read with the aid of one of the teachers of his father. His father's teachers did help him learn how to become worldly and be able to read what was written by scribes and educated men, but they didn't try to make him into like a scholar or a monk like they did his dad.
Right.
He didn't become a madras guy. He maintained as a warrior. And they saw that these guys would keep creeping down to the woodwork and keep claiming him. The Muslim scholars and teachers and Sufis would keep laying claim to him as their savior against the heathen Mongols, against the Christians. But he would tend to shake it off. And in the end, he signs his last correspondence. He dictates it as, I, Timur, servant of God. And what I got out of that is he saw himself as a leveling mechanism. He saw God as using him as his punisher upon all these different scumbag religious leaders and conquerors and murderers that had gone back and forth raping and pillaging over his little set of hills where he grew up in. And he saw himself as God's punishment upon mankind. And he just wanted to make this peaceful little circle, and if he had to burn the rest of the world to do it, that was all right by him. So, I, Timur, servant of God. That's how he thought of himself when he was an old man in his 60s.
Well, like I said, interesting, man. Very interesting figure. Literally unknown, it seems, in modern times, but had an influence all the way to the English-speaking world. And like I said, with Milton, with Poe, with Christopher Marlowe, all the way to the the other side of the Eurasia. Very interesting, very cool, man. You're a smart dude. You know that. You know a lot of stuff.
Oh, I was a smart dude. I'm not smart right now.
That's right. It's amazing.
Put my brain in a jar.
It's amazing. You should be a professor making six figures. But you know what? That would be in the good world. We live
figures. You know what kind of figures I'm interested in, right?
Yeah, right. we live in the clown, the dying clown world. The nonsense. All right, cool, bro.